Hi guys, if you don't know me already, my name is Michelle Vanakurov and I live with autism myself. I was diagnosed when I was about 2 years old, and now today one of the things I do is that I'm a blogger of my own blog series, The World of Autism, and one of the things I do is provide guest interviews to allow people to share their experiences as well of either from individuals who live with autism to parents to professionals and everyone to share their experiences around with autism. So my guest on here today is Miss Nicole Endersby.
Hi.
Nicole?
Hey, hello. How are you doing?
Good, good. So let's start it off here by letting you introduce yourself a little bit to everyone.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a mom. I have two boys with autism, one with ADHD, very similar to autism. So there was a period where we actually suspected he may be on the spectrum, and he actually may be. He shows a lot of signs for it, but he is ADHD according to his doctor and the school system. And so we have our two amazing boys that have gone through so much of therapies and special education, and people just don't understand that world unless you're in the world. And so my husband and I give back to the special needs community through my husband's a photographer. We own a media company, and we have our Endersby's Heroes, which we transform kids with disabilities. And so it started off as just kind of focused on autism, and now it's pretty much all disabilities across the board. And we just transform them into their favorite superhero and give them a nice little photo, but it just allows them to have that moment that they feel really special. And it's not actually just for the children with disabilities, actually for their siblings as well. And so it's kind of a whole family affair. And we started that last year in 2019, but we actually started photographing families, special needs families, about 7 years ago now. And we were just providing free family sessions because it's very hard for families to find a photographer, or even if they do, they're kind of costly. And the world of special needs, as you are well aware, is very expensive. Everything from therapies to, if there is any medical needs, then that adds on. It's just a very, very expensive life. And so we did this for free to kind of relieve that burden and to give back to the community, because a lot of people question us why we've done it for free. And that's why, is that we just want to honor these families in this way. So that's a little bit about us. And honestly, I've always been kind of a local advocate, if that makes sense, in many ways. And when our Endersby's Heroes hit media, that's when we're like, oh, wow, okay, other people outside of our little bubble in Dallas-Fort Worth, can actually know our story and advocate more, because I've always known that there's advocates like yourself out there, but it's like you just don't really know if your voice gets heard. And when that started across the media for us, we were like, okay, this is something that we can continue doing. We heard from families, even over in England, Canada, it was just amazing, the response of being able to connect across the world of families that are just like ours. So it was like not just our bubble, anymore. And so, yeah, so that's a little bit about us in a nutshell. So, yeah.
That's awesome, and that's really cool about the photography business, about how you're like targeted towards families with disabilities and everything. And it's really nice how you're doing it for free right now with everything that's been going on with the pandemic and everything.
Yeah.
With how you're doing like free sessions of like for families to get photos and everything.
Well, how it happens is we put together what we call our events. And so whenever we do an event, we do, like, let's say like one day we'll hold all our sessions, and all those sessions are covered for free. And then Scott, it takes them a long time to edit. And so that's usually why we can't hold a lot of events through the year. But when we do the events, that's how we hold our photos. Usually it's in April for autism awareness. That's actually what kind of started our journey. 7 years ago was we did this for autism awareness. It was to, now the child didn't have to have autism, but we did it to allow these families to understand we do this for autism. Our local community, when we posted out, it was for autism.
Mhm.
And so we usually always did it in April. And so we have continued that kind of, morale, if you will. And we usually do it in April. And we also started Caring Santas. And we're sad because this year
Oh,
we can't do our Caring Santa because of the pandemic. But we are actually on 5 years. Yes, 5 years now. We started our Caring Santa program, which basically allows families to come in, meet Santa in a sensory friendly environment. So they would sign up for a session. We usually do a craft. So when they're in their waiting period, because some families will take longer than others, and that's fine.
right.
So we always provided like a little craft and like a little, kind of like a little treat. Usually it's like sugar cookie, baking and all that. And so, we're sad that we can't do that this year. We're trying to figure out something that we can do with Santa, because we do have families that look forward to that every single year now that we do
Mhm.
that. And last year we had a Halloween event, and
That's awesome.
we have some amazing partners that have partnered with us. We have an amazing face painter that does very well with special needs kids. She's very patient. She is so talented. So we bring her in, and we try to employ, not necessarily employ, but we try to book maybe other companies that have disability attached with it as well, or nonprofits. So whenever we put events in, we always want to bring in more businesses that also understand our life. So it kind of
Right.
helps promote them too. Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I like how you were saying about where the like the transition period where the families are like waiting to get their photos getting taken. And
Yeah.
like for some children, like waiting is such a hard thing for
It,
them.
it
So
is. It is. Yeah.
having activities for them to do is a great way for them to like get excited and everything to get ready for their photos to get taken and stuff. So that's awesome that you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. That's really cool. For any families that are interested, you could go right for them. So that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, we have a great time with it, and we've partnered with a local church of ours that we have been going to before the pandemic hit and everything like that. But we have two amazing churches locally here that have so many great volunteers, and they embrace the special needs community and they understand it. And so, when we came to them about our, what we did, they just absolutely loved what we have done with the Caring Santa, and they're like, let's have it here, let's have it. And it just it's funny how when things happen, and encourages you to continue doing what you're doing, because when we were doing our Caring Santas, we were basically just trying to find any kind of space, and it was very stressful trying to figure out the volunteers, even for that one day, because you want to know that people completely understand this world. And so the fact that we can partner with our local church and they have volunteers that are trained, that they are background checked and the whole 9 yards,
Yeah.
it was a peace of mind for me, and allowed me to know, okay, yeah, we can continue doing this yearly, because we just took it
Right.
year by year when we started it. I didn't realize it was going to be a well sought after event after it happened. And so it was something we tried to continue to do. So, but the photos is definitely our heart, and advocating. I'm currently right now trying to finish writing my first book. It's about our journey. And, from
Oh,
my perspective as a mom, I know there's a lot of books now out there. When we started this journey though, with our oldest Jet, he there wasn't a lot of information out there. What there was just basically your traditional medical diagnoses. There wasn't as many advocates at the time. Of course, Temple Grandin was out there, and you have all these amazing people out there that were well known, but there
mhm.
wasn't a lot of perspectives from either the person with autism or the parent. It was, you know, you had a very small bubble of what you got to learn from. And so now it's awesome because there is so many advocates out there, which we need that, and we need more books, and we need more because I think you have to learn from others like yourself that you wrote. And I have actually, where's your book? I have your book right here, actually. So there's your book.
Oh, oh my goodness. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because I connected with you right after with Rachel. I found out about the book from Rachel, and then I've connected with Jeff since then and you. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. But yes, I tried to get as many titles as I can, just to learn from your perspective, like people like yourself, like your perspective. I do still I guess watch and research medical, but I don't try to stress that as much as more learning from you personally that has actually experienced it. Because if you focus too much in the medical, you're going to build anxiety around it, and you're going to think that
Exactly.
it's restricted, if that makes sense. And so
yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
And I love TED Talks too. I love the TED Talks. There's so many out there that have amazing TED Talks. Like Carrie Magro, I don't know if you follow him.
Yes, yeah.
You know Carrie? Okay. So, but for him, he's got the TED Talk, but people like him that have, you know, you can actually watch them. So if you're not really a reader or like Audible, you can go to TED Talks on YouTube, and you have people actually up there on the stage, you know, talking about their life, and, you know, and it's great. I've learned a lot from there too. So.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you have the book too, because that was actually, in fact, that was the very first time I ever got to personally share my story in a book, and I'm only 22.
Oh, wow. You've accomplished so much in that. Wow, that's awesome that you're doing everything.
Yeah, like what I said in the book and everything, like with a little bit with my journey and stuff, like one of the things was communication for me, how I didn't say my first word until I was 6 years old. And today I'm going to be pursuing an online degree in ABA.
I read that's awesome. I read that. Congratulations. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did get ABA when I was younger as one of my early intervention services.
Yeah.
That was, for me, was very positive.
Yeah.
The therapist I had, like, really, like, got to know me well and everything. So I think that's important. And now I'm doing that myself. So.
Well, that's cool, because you can bring into your personal experience, but you also can tweak it the way you need to tweak it. If, like, you go in as, you know, the ABA specialist and say, you know what, I've actually been through this personally, and I think this is the change we need to make. And I actually, it's amazing. That's awesome.
Exactly the point. That was exactly the point that I was thinking when as soon as I was going to be applying for this. I'm like, I know there's things that still have to change about it. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually went back when we were realizing with our oldest through the autism journey. I actually went back to school, and originally my background was management. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go into management because that's what I've always known. And when the more and more that we were reading and kind of getting involved in the special education world, I was like, you know, I need to go back and be a special educator. And I did go back to school for my EC through 6 with special education. I did graduate in 2015 and went through all that and did my student teaching. And I was actually a sub, and I focused mostly in the special ed classrooms because my whole goal was, like you, to advocate because you understand. Like, I wanted to be able to really work with not only the kids, but be able to speak to the parents and connect with them on a level that, you know, I wish maybe, you know, I would have had going through the beginning part of the journey. We have amazing professionals that have worked with all our kids, honestly. And I can't say enough about it at all, but there's not enough people out there, I think, that have a passion to advocate to a level that needs to be, out there, if that makes sense. So I went back to school, but then that's when my husband's business started growing. We do mostly real estate photography. And
Oh,
so the real estate market is always been pretty big. And so I help with the business, and we homeschool now. So we made that transition from public school to homeschool due to the
oh,
pandemic. And it's actually been going really well. So we are blessed to be able to um, do that, if that makes sense, right
right.
now. But we always enjoyed our kids' public school experience. But not everybody does, and I know that. So
Yeah, it's so different for everyone. Like, I've been through it all. I've been through in public, I've been through a specialized school in the beginning and stuff. I'm like, I've been through like any kind of school system, really, whatever be specialized or public or whatever. It's just,
yeah, I saw your multiple different schools that you have tried, and you got in high school, you got to pick, and yeah,
yeah, and yes, that is true. I did get to because it was actually because of my older sister who
yeah,
was already in the high school and she was in a special program. So the point of that was that I actually got to choose because if I went with my sister, which I ended up doing that, there was
yeah,
a sibling waiver, and so that was the best part. I didn't have to go to
yeah,
his own school. I could like go to a brand new school, which at the time it was one of the newer high schools of the district. So
yeah.
yeah,
That's cool though. That's cool that you got to choose. Yeah, I mean, and you hear so many different things, and so I've realized when I talk about the schooling process, like you have,
yeah,
it's you have to take it with a grain of salt in a way, because not everybody has that experience. And so when I talk about it and I advocate it, I don't want people to feel like, well, she has this experience, so therefore our experience is not, not right, or what have you. So I have realized that in the journey, not everybody goes through the same experiences, but
mhm,
we've been blessed with a great school system in our area, and that's why we stayed in this area in Dallas Fort Worth. And so I think there's a lot that could be changed in a way, but I think it's also amazing at what they try to do, because there's so many kids out there that need services, and
yeah,
just they just need that extra time. And so yeah, that's kind of what brought me into the special education world. But I also
mhm,
realized too that I want to advocate on a different level. Like you only can do so much in the school system, as
yeah,
being in the school system.
yeah,
And so I was like, I want to be able to reach more. And that was before our Endersby's Heroes even made it out in media. I told my husband, I'm like, I just feel like there's more out there. Like, I'm supposed to be part of the special education or special needs disability awareness world, but I could not put my finger on it. And then the Endersby's Heroes just took off like it did. And I was like, okay, that's what we're supposed to do. Like, that's the area of disability we're supposed to be, is to be an advocate, to be a voice for all the families that don't feel like they can have a voice right now, for all those even the individuals with disabilities that want to say something, that they're afraid to say something. We're their voice, the people that are able to speak up. And I realized after all that, the special education part of it, that I loved it. Like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely
yeah.
love. I miss those kids. I miss those. Just I loved all my classrooms that I had been in, and I miss those kids still.
Oh,
And but I knew that there was more, if that makes sense. So
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of where we're at now. So I completely understand your journey and all that. So for you, do you work at the school system that you actually went to, like
uh,
at school?
no, I don't. So I work in it's actually in the next town over me that I work in a public
Okay.
school for. But I work specifically in the special education program in a self-contained autism classroom. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yes. So I work with currently with second and third graders with autism. So
Oh, that's my favorite grade.
level. I
Second
know, right?
graders are my favorite. I love the second graders.
This
They're
is my
just,
second year in a row doing second and third graders. So I'm like,
yeah.
it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And like now that taking on now both virtual, that anyone that's learning from home and in person, because we have a hybrid system.
Oh, that's got to be nuts. Oh, wow. That's,
It's interesting. I will say
yeah.
that. It's a lot of different resources, but it gets me like utilizing like with technology in the way also. So it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, that's got to be. I actually, I left my subbing at right before COVID had the pandemic hit. So it was around. So I actually,
Oh,
yeah, I'm kind of glad that I had left when I did, because I don't know how I would deal with that transition of the virtual stuff, because yeah, when COVID came, I was like, yeah, there's no way that I can do the virtual thing. And I feel for all my friends out there that are teachers, like yourself out there. And I personally, I would have anxiety. I have anxiety, and that would give me anxiety, I think, of having to go back and forth between all that. So
it's I think it just took time. Like I know with the classroom I work with, and it just takes time to like balance everything and to schedule everything out. I think that was
yeah.
very much the key of it, because now we've been a lot more organized, and like we know we got a lot of training in terms about like what resources to use, and especially with Google, because that's the main thing we use. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's pretty much using whatever resources, materials, both online and also like physical, like materials too. So it's a mix. You got to think
Yeah.
outside the box, and that's pretty much what comes into with the education system. Always think
Yep.
outside the box. So
Yeah. You
uh,
always have to be on your toes, definitely. And personally, I like it because there's always something to do. Like you don't,
oh
it's not a
yeah,
world in education where you sit. I mean, even for lunch, good luck even eating your lunch sitting down fully, because it's just nonstop. There's always something to do. And so I totally, you have to be on your toes in education, and I get
oh yeah,
that. And so I was never one as a parent. I always gave grace, if that makes sense. I gave grace. If there was ever, a day that was kind of crazy, and I knew there was going to be a crazy day, you have to give grace. You can't over expect at times.
hmm
So yeah, I completely understand that world. So but yeah, so that's so cool that you're doing what you're doing. And so are you going to be able to use the ABA in your school? Or are you thinking about going and taking maybe your own therapy center, or?
So actually currently right now with my job, we do use ABA techniques in the classroom, which is great
Oh,
because I'm getting that hands-on experience.
yeah.
That's why it's helping me a lot now that like I could like I'm gonna be taking classes that are pretty much more about with ABA more in depth. So and I could also like have the hands-on experience at the same time. So
Yeah.
that will be very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, my kids went through the autism program in our school district, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
not just, yeah, we have a awesome autism program, and they graduated out of it, is what we called it, because they were able to move from the autism program into our, what we have is a social skills class.
Oh,
They
that's
call
what
it
I did.
stars here. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
the
did that in
social
middle
skills.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing because these kids that are, I don't want to use high functioning, low functioning. I get that that's all trying to get out, but think of your kids that don't need so much one-on-one attention. Those are
Yeah.
the kiddos that got to go out of the autism class into the social skills class, and they provided more inclusion. And yeah, so our kids, we call it graduated out, but they've always had the social skills, speech, occupational therapy, the whole 9 yards. And so I wish that a lot of people understood the world more of what, you know, our families go through and what yourself goes through as an individual that has gone through therapies personally. Because it's like, it's not just in school, we had outside as well. And, but it's amazing that schools will provide those therapies and those class settings in the school system. And so I always tell people to look out for your resources because, you know, a lot of people don't even realize social skills. They're like, what's that? You know, what's a social skills class? You know, and so
Yeah.
you have to kind of like, you know, advocate out more for that because it's a great tool for people that need it. So.
Oh yeah, like actually that was the social skills program for me. That was created by my speech language therapist in middle school. So
That's awesome. I read that. That's amazing that she did that.
yeah, she did that. I was like, it was incredible. It helped me out a lot. And I think a lot more school districts need to start creating that kind of program because they don't, it's like they still need to teach the importance of social skills to those with disabilities. They really do because
Yeah.
we don't get enough of that. We don't.
No. And you need it specialized to that because even in resource,
Oh yeah.
you don't get, I did my student teaching in resource and the teacher I was with is phenomenal. So she worked her way into just trying to do a little social skills, if you will, as well. But I know it's not all like that. And so there needs to be a separate program that allows kids to come in and really be able to, you know, talk to one another. And I know with this whole COVID pandemic, with these kids not being able, just kids in general, not being able to, you know, get together and socialize, it's going to be interesting after all this, how that's going to affect more kids that doesn't even have autism, that, you know, so those kindergartners right now, the first graders right now that really need socialization. That's such a crucial time. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what, you know, the schools do, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And now I just want to kind of transition a little bit about like I saw something about that you have a podcast called
Yes, we do. It's called
that's the next thing. Yeah.
I'm a talker, so we'll get
that's
back
so
on track
good.
here.
Yeah.
We do have a podcast we started this year. It's called A Special Life Podcast. So it's A Special Life. And we just talk about our small business and special needs. So it's kind of our family, kind of like a vlog on podcast, if you will. We're trying to get a little better about that. We've missed a couple weeks because of my back has been out. And so I've told my husband, I'm like, I don't have the energy right now for that. But we're going to get back on the podcast. So yeah, definitely check it out. We've got, I think we've got 12 up there right now that you can listen to. And we also just started a YouTube channel called A Special Life as well. And that's going to be video based. I want to be able to do everything in subtitles because of our community out there that's hard of hearing, or our deaf community out there.
Very true.
Because they can't listen to our podcast. And that kind of breaks my heart knowing the fact that there's a community out there that we can't quite reach yet because we don't have the subtitles and we don't have our podcast obviously is all listening based. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we're doing the YouTube, is so we can reach out to more of those communities that don't they don't have access to hear us. So that's our life in a nutshell. And we're having a good time with that and hoping that we can expand more on advocating, and because that's really what we love doing. And not that we don't love our regular photography and videography, we do. But there's just something really cool about connecting with other people like you know. And eventually we would like to employ adults with disabilities. Our goal is to get to our business for the YouTube and the whole 9 yards. Because we always want a business for our kids to be able to be employed at. So if they can't go out and find something that they enjoy, they're always welcome to work with us so they have employment. So no matter what, they're going to be employed. And one of our kiddo with ADHD really loves photography. He loves anything arts. He's just like his daddy. And so we're kind of already kind of showing him, you know, a little bit of the ropes on the creative side. He's very
Mhm.
interested in the whole YouTube world and the videos, and the other two are just like, yeah, so what, you know, like whatever. But at least they know that they always have a place to, you know, come and work and feel like they have some sort of independence, because that's the big thing with me, is that they have their own independence. It may not look like, you know, your next door neighbor, it may not look like yourself, but they have their own independence, if you will. So even if they have to live at home, they're still able to do whatever they need to do. So we would like to get to that point of employing adults with disabilities. That's our kind of our goal, is to get our business rounded enough to be able to do that. So yeah.
That's very cool. I know that that's the big thing about with employment, how much of an issue that is in the disability community and everything. So that is incredible that hopefully that will happen in the future
Yeah.
and everything. So
Yeah, I would love it, because I mean, honestly, the tech world, especially, and my husband is very into techie, and he completely understands when it comes to the tech world. You have so many people out there with autism or undiagnosed autism. It's mostly probably undiagnosed, because it's my generation where autism wasn't as I guess, as diagnosed. So there was a lot more ADD and ADHD diagnosed when I was growing up. I was an 80s baby. And, but the whole world out there, you know, with tech is full of people with autism. And I wish that more would embrace that. You know, I know Microsoft does a very good job with hiring people specifically with autism, because they know that they're going to get the job done that needs to be done. And but there's a lot of cool things out there right now. So yeah.
yeah, there is. There definitely is a lot, and there is just gotta be more that has to continue growing with. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. I feel like I'm looking both ways, because I have two different cameras. My husband set it up, and I'm like, I'm looking this
oh.
way and I'm looking that way. And I'm like, so if I'm looking like in a different direction, that's why, is because there's another camera. So I
Oh, gotcha. It's so
have
good.
it's messing with me.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wrap this up here about
Sure.
what would I know you pretty much gave like a lot of advice in a way, but if there was one point that you would really truly want to share with parents that have children with autism and other disabilities, what would you tell them? What would you tell
Not to give up. I think, sorry, you just broke up there. Are you, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I thought I was about to freeze. I was like, okay, hold on. Okay, what would I tell another parent with a child with autism is basically not give up. You know, and if you just found out the diagnosis, don't think it's the end, because it's not. I think with any diagnosis, autism or not, you get this fear that, you know, because you listen so much to the medical advice and the stereotypes. Don't listen to the stereotypes, is what I would say. Look at your child as the individual themselves. Look at their personality, because if anything, I learned that autism doesn't define my kids. My kids are stubborn like I am. My oldest has the Grace personality. Like, he wants to be friends with everybody. He doesn't discriminate against anybody. He's had friends that are all different races. He has had friends that are handicapped, like physically handicapped in a wheelchair. He doesn't see that as an obstacle of friendship. To him, it's just the person, it's the name, it's not the disability. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, you know, there's so much about my kids that I have inspired me to be better, and they've inspired me to be more patient. They've inspired me to look at the world more and really embrace differences, because, you know, they don't see differences. And our oldest is just really at the age he knows he has autism. You know, he's 11, and we had that discussion recently and about autism, and it doesn't really bug him per se, but he just is into that point of trying to figure out why his brain works differently. like, because he's starting to go in that teenage years and
Yeah.
18, and we talk about, and I just tell him that, to him it's special that he has the way of thinking that he does. I feel like more of the world needs to think the way he does, because especially now in 2020, because so many people have so much judgment, and there's too much hate out there, and it's not enough fairness. And so I would tell the families, just don't look at the stereotypes, don't look at the judgments that are coming through, and when you are ready, advocate for, not just your family but other families out there, because the more advocating we can do as a whole, the more love we can show as a whole, we can hopefully stop the discriminating against the disabilities. And disabilities come in all cultures. It doesn't matter who you are. Disabilities don't discriminate. And so I think that getting to that point that families understand it's going to be okay, if that makes sense. There's people out there like them, so don't think it's the end. Reach out to your community is what I would tell them.
That is awesome. That is really
yeah. After like 20 minutes down, you're like, where are you getting with this?
It's all good. It's all good. That was really great advice too. Definitely for families not to give up, because anybody can make progress in their life. They really can.
Yeah.
So don't see more of the ability behind the disability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, you're breaking up. Sorry. And I'm sure when you were going through your speech, what advice were they telling your parents? What did they tell them basically to prepare for when you got diagnosed with autism?
They basically told me that it's pretty much it's going to be an unpredictable future. That's what they pretty much said to my parents, that there may or may not be too much that's going to happen for me in life.
Yeah.
That's what they were told for me. And it just pretty much like early on, like from first grade on, I was making tremendous progress from there. So,
yeah.
So
it seems like that first grade year, that's what happened to my boys too. It was like kindergarten and first grade year. They just took off with
elementary
everything.
School for me, pretty much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's why I say don't listen to you have to listen to the medical, but don't listen to the stereotypes, because if you get consumed in the stereotypes, you're going to not allow your child to get to their full potential. You're just not, because we were even told when our kids started their speech therapy, basically your kids may never talk. And if we would have listened to that, we would have, our kids, would not be still talk. They wouldn't be talking right now. And, there are a lot of kids out there that are nonverbal. But I didn't take no for an answer, if that makes sense either. We were told they're probably never going to talk. We found out our kids had apraxia of speech. I don't know if that's...
I've heard of that.
Yeah, apraxia. I guess it's pretty common, and I never knew of it. But when we learned what it was, we were able to specifically do their speech therapy to apraxia. And it was just eye-opening for us. That was the lifesaver. And it was like, wow, that's all we needed to know. But yet we had professionals tell us they may never talk. So get prepared. They may, do some sign language, or, we had a little Dino box thing, I call it the Dino box, but it's kind of another generic brand. But we had that system for one of ours because he was a little more delayed than our oldest for speech. And we could not, he's got apraxia and we couldn't figure it out. So we got him that system. And that's when we learned how much he knew too, because if you work with kids with the Dino, the speech,
what we for some of my students, they actually have a AAC device, like an iPad pretty much, that they're communicating.
Yeah, it's like, the one he had was like bulky. It was heavy. It wasn't probably the nicer ones that you have.
Nowadays, it's like, I'm like, I wish I had that when I was like learning to communicate and everything. I'm like, because I had what's called the picture exchange communication system. I had PEX.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've
That
heard of
was for
that.
me
Yeah.
communicating. That was my
Yeah.
way of communicating, and a little bit of sign language. So I
Yeah. Well, and you have to do, I mean, because that's another great form of communication. So,
yeah,
parents out there are discouraged that their kids are nonverbal. Well, try sign language. It's
yeah,
amazing how fast they'll pick it up and they understand, because there's such a world out there that they can communicate. And the system that you were talking about, kind of like the little iPad device, we had that for our oldest, and we were teaching him words, and he was literally spelling out sentences. He was like 4. We're like, okay, first of all, how in the world does this kid know sentences? And that's when we realized, we're like, okay, we've got to change up this therapy or something, because he's progressing so much faster than what they're
yeah,
expecting him to,
yeah.
at 4 and 5 years old. Like, so I mean, at kindergarten they were giving him second grade work in his autism class, because he was just
Mm.
so, like, he loves learning, though. He absolutely loves learning. And so, but yeah, that's why don't get discouraged, because your kid will go as far as they want to go, with their independent and their achievements. And so yeah.
Exactly. That's those are really great points. I want to thank you so much for coming on to share about with yourself and your family and for all that you guys do. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank
Thank
you. This
you.
is awesome. I was so excited. So yeah, definitely.